Part 6 of Federalist number 10. It's going to be just a reading of a few of the paragraphs. We'll come back later on and look at them a little bit more in depth. By what means is this object attainable? Evidently by one of two only. Either the existence of the same passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented, or the majority having such coexistent passion or interest must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect schemes of oppression. Concert here means coming together, grouping together, joining a group. If the impulse and opportunity be suffered to coincide, we well know that neither moral nor religious motives can be relied on as an adequate control. They are not found to be such on the injustice and violence of individuals, and lose their efficacy in proportion to the number combined together. That is, in proportion as their efficacy becomes needful. Another thing that you might want to start thinking about is every time you hear the word justice, it doesn't necessarily exactly match with what we call justice today. We call fair play, justice. There's at that time when Madison and Hamilton, the Federalist Papers, they were also talking about justice in a sense that if you are in a contract, if you have a contract, if you don't pay the person who has lent you some money, you're being unjust. So keep that in mind too. So Madison and Hamilton and Jay are looking at all the bad things that the state legislatures were doing at the time. What they were doing is, if majority of their citizens were debtors, they'd borrowed money and now it was hard for them to pay it back, those majority wanted the legislators to write laws, to enact laws that would somehow benefit them, that would either give them a chance to pay their debts later or to pay their debts with paper money that was not worth anything. At that time, whenever these founders talked about justice, they were also calling the laws that were passed by the state legislators that were beneficial to the debtors and not to the creditors as unjust. So kind of keep that in mind too. The first time I read the Federalist Papers, and I hadn't really spent much time into reading of some of these other founders. Now this is almost over 20 years ago. I just thought that when they say justice, it's in the sense that we talk about it today, but it's more than that. So if you remember in one of the Federalists, in one of our introductory videos, I said it's very important for you to know the context of the time, to see what was happening, to see, for example, when they said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration of Independence, that was directly or indirectly from the phrase that John Locke had used, the major philosopher of the Revolution. He said life, liberty, and property. So property contract was very important at that time. We don't think about it like that. It was so important that 2 or 3 of the founders, when they got into debt, they ended up going to debtor's prison. So at that time, they looked at things a little differently. So pay focus on that, please. Okay. The next paragraph. For this view of the subject, it may be concluded that a pure democracy, by which I mean a society consisting of a small number of citizens who assemble and administer the government in person, can admit of no cure for the mischiefs of faction. Notice this sentence when he says democracy, he's got in mind small city-states of Greece. Way back when the majority of the free white population or the residents of the city could get together and vote in person. They did not have representatives. So keep in mind, it's a pure democracy, means the citizens every day, every week, just walk up there, cast their vote, and they decide something, they go back. There's no representation. So that's what he's talking about. Just keep that in mind. A common passion or interest will, in almost every case, be felt by a majority of the whole. Again, passion. Every time you hear the word passion, it's got negative connotations. It's impulsive. It's something that comes from the heart but not reasoned. It's very, very impulsive, without thought and reasoning. A communication and a concert results from the form of government itself. Again, concert, coming together, okay, a group. And there is nothing to check the inducements to sacrifice the weaker party or an obnoxious individual. Hence, it is that such democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention. Spectacle, something to look with horror, something to laugh at, something not worth anything. So there are spectacles of turbulence and contention. In a storm, you get turbulence. You know, when you're in the air, an airplane, the pilot says we're going to hit the turbulence. Please have a seat. Put your seatbelts on. And that's what he's saying. He says something that's not going to be steady at all.